Hello art friends, Selena here. Today I want to show you the basics of color theory and show you how to make a split primary color wheel that you can use as a reference to help you mix virtually any color you'd like. I want to go over the supplies first. I'm using the Winsor Newton Cotman series sketch box. You can pick this up virtually any supply hobby store, Amazon of course, and Jackson's Art, I think, has it for the best price that I've seen it at. I'm using Canson watercolor paper. If you are on a budget, I recommend, you can make a great color wheel with Crayola, with virtually any paints, but your paper is going to make or break your painting experience. Canson is a good, decent student grade paper and it won't break the bank. These two things, I'm using a number 6 round paintbrush. You can get these again, any hobby supply store. I have a pencil and a kneaded eraser that I'll be using to trace a little sketch. 2 cups of water, one to be clean at all times and the other for rinsing my brush. I have a palette that I'll be using. I'm using 2 today, but one of these guys is just perfect. I have a spray bottle to moisten the paints and 2 more things. I have a couple of circles that I'll be tracing to make my color wheel. I taped my paper down onto a clipboard and I used washi tape to tape it down. So those are the things that I'll be using today. Oh, paper towels, or I have a really old paint washcloth that I use here. And I think that's about it for supplies. So let's start color theory. So, it can be kind of scary. There's color mixing and all of these things that go into it. The basics of color theory, you have 3 primary colors: red, yellow, and blue. The reason these are primary is because you cannot make this color. You can't make red. There's no 2 things you can mix to make red. It's primary. And the same for yellow and blue. And from these 3, you can make virtually any other color. These are primary colors. Now, when you mix 2 primary colors together, you will get a secondary color, which is going to be orange, green, or purple. So when I mix blue and yellow, I get green, red and blue, I get purple. You get the idea. I want to introduce you to warm and cool colors. Warm colors are associated with fire. You have your red, orange, and yellow, and your cool colors are your blues, greens, and purples. When you blend a warm and a cool color, they tend to desaturate, is the technical artist term, but neutralize is kind of the idea. If I were to take this bright green and mix it with this bright orange, I would get a brownish neutral color, which is great when you want to mix shadows and things like that. It makes them very rich and full. But if you are not wanting to make brown, that can be a frustrating experience. So putting opposite colors next to each other makes them pop. They support each other. When you mix opposite colors, it's like kryptonite. They neutralize each other. I also want to talk about analogous colors. Analogous are colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. So this purple, this red violet, and this blue violet are analogous. Complementary colors are opposite. Analogous colors are side by side. This is important to know when you're making your painting, because if you are wanting to create a feeling of depth or form, you'll probably be exploring analogous colors. But if you are looking to add contrast to something, to show it as a different object or place or something, you'll be using complementary colors side by side. This is the color wheel that we are going to use to make today. I took this 9x12 paper, cut it in half, so I have a 6x9, and I taped it down on a clipboard. We tape watercolor paper down because we are adding water to it, and when you add a lot of water, it warps the paper. This helps make sure that it dries flat and keeps the warping kind of in check. First thing I'm going to do is trace my circle around about the center. I am not too worried about making it perfect. This is just a reference tool for me to use here in the studio to indicate where my colors are going to be, I found it helpful to kind of think of it as a clock. I make a center point generally, and I'm going to put a color right here at 12. These are my primary colors at 12, at 4, and about 8. These are primary colors. I'm taking a much smaller circle. I looked around, I couldn't find anything that was small enough. So I just have this little bottle of rocks. And I'm tracing those clock points that I marked. I am going to erase this. I don't want these lines to show through, but when I erase it, they will leave kind of a ghost image for me to reference. I'm going to split these, since these are my primary colors and this is a split primary, I'm going to split these in half. I'm going to imagine a line coming straight up from the center and coming straight from the center here and straight from the center this way. What this does is this allows me to have a warm yellow and a cool yellow in the primary space. I mentioned that you can have warm and cool colors, but within colors you can also have a warm and a cool. And what makes them a yellow warm or cool is which way it's leaning. These are both yellow, but this is a warm yellow because it is leaning closer to orange. This is a cool yellow because it is leaning closer to green. If I were to try to mix this yellow, and I'll show you an example on a scratch piece of paper. If I were to mix this yellow with this red, I would not get a bright cheery orange like this. I would get kind of a dull orange because this is closer to green, red's opposite. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to mark on my color wheel where I'm having my warm colors and where my cool colors are at. And again, warm yellow, warm red, cool red, since this is closer to the cool side, and the same for the blue. So before I start painting, I'm going to take my kneaded eraser and roll it into kind of a snake and just roll it across the drawing that I've made. And this will lift up enough of the graphite so that the image doesn't show, but it shows a ghost image, which is enough for me to paint with. This line, it looks like I drew it a little bit darker. All right, but if I paint over these lines before I erase them, they will stay there. They are not going anywhere. So coming back to my cool yellow, I'm going to go through and paint the primaries first, and I'm going to paint them one at a time, because if I were to put a wet paint right next to this wet paint, they will connect and they will blend together. The paint will go wherever there's water. So if I put a wet color next to it, it's fine if I want them to blend, but if I don't want blending, then I need to wait till it dries. Winsor & Newton calls this one intense blue, and it is very, very intense. You will see you really don't need a whole lot. I tend to water it down actually. See if that's enough. I'm not going to worry about perfect circles. I really just want to know where the colors are on the color wheel so that I can intentionally mix. And now my cool red. Again, if I wanted this to be lighter, I would add more water. And I would encourage you, play with the values, make a whole page of swatches where you play with how much water you add to the colors, because it will make a difference, not just in this color, but in whatever you choose to mix with it as you'll see in a little bit. Okay. Now while that dries, I'm going to mix my secondary colors. As you can see, I've mixed them here earlier today, but we'll be doing the same colors, so I'm not worried about mixing them. So to make this orange, I started with my warm red, and of these two reds, this one is closer to orange, so that's my warm red. Got to be careful not to use dirty water, because if I use dirty water, then that gets in the paint and it will make the paint dirty and makes muddy colors, which is, nobody wants that. So warm red. And a warm yellow. And of these two yellows, this one is closer to the orange. So I'm actually gonna just do a little bit because red is a very strong color, so I don't need too much red to make orange. I'll grab a little bit more yellow. There we go. And, oh, I didn't draw my second colors, my second shapes. Okay, let's see. For my secondary colors, they are at 2, 6, and 10. So if I'm thinking of this as a clock, I'm gonna put this circle a little bit outside so that there's enough room for me to add a color in between these two. Because there is going to be tertiary colors that we'll be adding in a little bit. Secondary color there. And if I had a little bit better planning, I would have probably done all my circles all beforehand. And this one right here. I am not going to worry about making circles for my tertiary colors, just my primary and secondary. So mixing my red and yellow, I got my orange coming back here. Maybe a little bit more yellow. Lovely. Okay. And I'm just gonna paint my circle. Now to make my secondary color, I can, it's actually quite simple and kind of fun. I can grab this orange and I can bring some over here and mix it in a palette very easily. But what I did for this one that was a little bit fun, a little bit playful, I started with the orange itself. I'm going to make a little orange circle. A tertiary color is when I mix a primary with a secondary. So I'm going to mix the warm red that's actually not painted here yet because I was waiting for that to dry, and this orange. So when I mix red and orange, I'm going to get red-orange. So I painted my circle and I'm just going to come in and bring in that red. Like I said, it was a little bit of playfulness, just, there we go. Okay, I'm gonna bring in the same orange right here, make a little orange circle, and since I'm making yellow orange, I'm gonna add some more yellow to it. Ugh. The dirty water really shows up in these oranges. You've got to have clean water. There we go. And while I'm here, I'm going to paint the other half of that yellow circle. I figure that part is probably dry right now. That also helps me see that this orange is a bit dark. I'm going to lift some of that paint and bring in more yellow. And for green, let's see, we have this lovely cool yellow, which is such a fun color, and cool blue, which is this very strong and intense. And I just barely a little bit, and makes very charged green. I feel like that's a bit bluer than I want, so I'm gonna bring in more yellow, and I'm gonna come off to the side and mix the green and mix the blue in gradually so that I can get to the shade that I want. There we go. You can see that it's lighter because there's more water in this particular color. To make my tertiary color here, I take this green that I've already made and I can add a little blue to it. I've already got it right here, so I'm just gonna pull it in and make a blue-green, which is such a great color. If you've come to any of the meetups, you know I love green. And to make that yellow-green, I'm going to bring in more yellow, which is such a fun lime color. Look at that. Wow. I think I could probably do a little bit more blue in here. There we go. Love it. And our red and blue and purple are the last ones we have left. So I'm going to finish this red. I'm going to bring in my warm red. And I'm going to bring in my warm blue. You'll see this one is not near as intense as that intense blue. And I'm going to mix this cool red with this warm blue. This is the one time mixing those opposites actually comes together and gives you a lovely purple. We have this awesome magenta red. I think Winsor Newton calls it alizarin crimson. And then we want this, I think this is cobalt blue. There we go. And if you look, this one looks a little bit red. So this would be like a red violet. I'm gonna add more blue till it gets to the, there we go. That's the purple I was looking for. And I'm going to use that as my base, this color right here. And I'm going to add in a little bit of this magenta color to make red violet. And same thing with a blue violet. Start with this same purple, whoops, and bring in some of this cobalt blue. Good heavens, that was a lot of magenta. I'm using a thirsty brush, a brush that I've wiped off most of the paint. I've rinsed it off and wiped off most of the paint and water to absorb the there we go. To absorb the paint so that I can come back in and make the color I want. So this is the split primary color wheel. Again, called split primary because we've got both warm and cool primary colors. And from here, you can mix virtually any color. A couple of things to say about this. You know, if you're looking for like a peach or a salmon, those are, you know, in this realm. So this tells you kind of where to start. Again, the lighter colors, the pastel colors, you'll add more water. We don't usually use white in watercolor. It tends to, even though this set does come with a white, it tends to make the image chalky. So I definitely give it a try, see if you like it. But I just wanted to let you know that you'll find just adding water will help you get the lighter color that you're looking for. Browns are a version of dark orange. So you would start with an orange color and move towards the center by adding something of its opposite to help bring in the darker brown color that you might be looking for. I hope to see you guys at the meetup. This was a lot of fun. I love talking about colors and color theory. I really encourage you to take this as just a beginning and start to look at different things in your house, in your life. You know, this would be a fun color to try to mix. I know I'd probably start right here. Just play with it. And that way, when you come to one of our meetups, you are ready for one of our projects. I hope to see you guys there. Be safe. Have a great day.